Ever felt utterly lost, like everyone else's life made perfect sense while yours was an uncrackable code? That feeling, the gnawing uncertainty about past choices, relationships, your very place in the world, it's a universal ache, whispering, in hushed conversations, flashing across social media feeds, lurking in the sideways glances of strangers. The question hangs heavy. Am I the only one? But this isn't where the journey begins. It starts much earlier, in childhood, when we learn that crying is weakness, that smiles mask sorrow, that love hinges on flawless perfection. Over time, we build walls around our hearts, fortresses of unmet expectations, buried fears, broken promises, and invisible scars. The problem is these walls don't protect, they imprison. The more we avoid pain, the more it grows. The more we pretend, the farther we drift from ourselves. Then, one day, the pain arrives, not as an enemy, but as a summons, an invitation to look inward, however agonizing, to acknowledge that things aren't okay. Maybe they never were. I remember Laura, a woman who wrote to me. At 32, she confessed to a decade and a half of meticulously crafted illusion, a soul-crushing job, an empty relationship, a perpetually plastered-on smile. Then, one day, without warning, she collapsed in her bathroom and wept for hours. It wasn't a breakdown. It was her first genuine moment in years. On that cold tile floor, she realized the pain wasn't from her job, her partner, or her family, but from years of denying who she truly was, sacrificing her authentic self at the altar of external validation. So many of us do the same. We mistake approval for love, conformity for security, vulnerability for weakness. Escaping pain doesn't erase it, it merely postpones the reckoning. When we run, it returns with a vengeance, in insomnia, anxiety, addiction, toxic relationships, impulsive decisions. Pain doesn't want to hurt us, it wants to show us what needs healing. As Carl Jung wisely said, what you resist persists. Fear of feeling leads to self-avoidance. Fear of vulnerability breeds isolation. Denial of our shadows allows them to haunt us until we confront them. We need to stop seeing pain as the enemy. It's often the only voice crying out for attention. This is where emotional integration comes in. It's not about constant strength or the absence of pain, but about not running from it. It's about understanding that every part of us has a purpose: fear, anger, sadness, guilt. When listened to, they can guide us inward, towards self-awareness, compassion, and ultimately freedom. We spend years searching outside for what can only be found within. Therapy, books, travel, relationships, spirituality, all helpful tools. But true healing begins when we stop blaming the world and take responsibility for our own wounds. This doesn't mean suffering disappears. Abuse, loss, betrayal, abandonment. These are part of life. But by addressing our inner pain, the impact of the external world transforms, not because the world becomes gentler, but because we become stronger. Not through hardening, but through acceptance. Acceptance isn't surrender, it's clarity. It's knowing we don't have to be perfect to be human. Our mistakes, scars, and flaws are part of our story, and yet here we are, breathing, striving, living. That, in itself, is courage. If you're reading, maybe it's your moment. The pain you carry isn't punishment, it's a call to return to yourself, to hear what you've silenced for so long. Even if it hurts, terrifies, or seems impossible, it's worth it. Life isn't about avoiding pain. It's about learning to live with it, finding meaning in the ruins, discovering that even after everything, we can choose to rise, not out of obligation, but out of our own will. There's light inside you. You just need the courage to see it. Pain communicates in peculiar ways. It doesn't follow rules or speak in clear pronouncements. Sometimes it arrives as unexpected memories, other times as casual conversations, and some days it surfaces without reason, like a persistent shadow. We spend years questioning the intensity of our pain, wondering why a random comment can shatter us, why certain people seem to hit our weak spots. The answer lies in the past, not in the event itself, but in the wounds it reopens. I met Pedro, a 40-year-old man weary of being the strong one. A teacher and single father of two, he believed his strength stemmed from never showing vulnerability. Until his youngest son asked, "Dad, have you ever cried?" That's when he realized how utterly disconnected he'd become from his own feelings. His son saw him as a stone. The question was a mirror. He wept, not out of sadness, but from seeing himself, the boy who learned to shoulder responsibility, the man who choked back tears to be manly, the father who forgot he also needed care. In his kitchen, amid the scent of coffee and the sounds of children playing, he decided to stop running from his own story. Our pain isn't in the world, it's within us. What hurts isn't what happened, but the unhealed wounds. A criticism stings because it echoes an old voice. Abandonment recalls past losses. Pain is muscle memory. It remembers everything and resurfaces with force when something feels familiar. We avoid situations, people, or emotions, not out of strength but out of fear of reliving the unbearable. By avoiding, we prolong the suffering because unfelt pain remains active. It's like wearing shoes that are too tight. By the end, have the day your feet ache, but you pretend everything's fine. Carl Jung said, "There is no healing without confrontation." The unconscious doesn't remain silent. What we don't face returns in repetitive patterns, crises, or self-destructive behaviors. Self-discovery doesn't seek easy answers, but the courage to look inward and acknowledge that some of our pain originates not from the world, but from ourselves, from trauma, limiting beliefs, stories we carry as absolute truths. Transformation isn't a switch. It's a slow, painful, and often solitary process. It demands patience, compassion, and brutal honesty. No one wants to admit they've built a life on irrelevant fears, on professional, romantic, or friendship choices, or religious beliefs driven by a desperate need to avoid feeling, to shield themselves from pain. This protection, however, becomes a prison. The more we try to control everything to avoid suffering, the more trapped we become. The paradox is this: the more we avoid pain, the more it defines us. When we face it, even fearfully, we regain control. Not over the world, but over ourselves. It won't hurt less, but we'll stop running, stop blaming ourselves, stop believing there's something wrong with being wounded. Pain isn't failure. It's an invitation to grow, to become someone who no longer needs to flee because they've learned, to embrace themselves, even the bleeding parts. If you're here listening to this, perhaps it's time to stop punishing yourself for feeling, to stop trying to fix everything alone, to stop pretending you're okay when you're not. True strength isn't being invincible. It's being human, acknowledging our flaws, fears, and scars. This doesn't make us weak. It makes us real. Do this for yourself. Breathe deeply and allow yourself to feel. It's okay not to have the answers, to cry, to ask for help, to seek, even if it hurts. Every step toward truth is a step toward freedom, and that freedom, though slow in coming, is worth every ounce of courage. Before you move on, share this with someone who needs to hear it. A simple gesture can mean the world to someone feeling alone. Leave a word in the comments that describes how you feel right now. In every life there comes a moment when everything seems to fall apart. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's the silence, the emptiness, the sense of repetition. And then we stop and ask, why does this keep happening? That's when the hardest journey begins, the journey inward. This journey has no GPS, no one can guide us. Each person has their own labyrinth, their own shadows, their own ghosts. Facing. This alone is terrifying. When we look at ourselves without masks, we see things we'd rather not see, old patterns, fears, scars. The discovery hurts so much we want to return to the external world, to the noise, to the distraction. But ancient wisdom says, the way out is through. To change, we need to go deep to the point of pain, to confront what we've tried to hide. It's not easy. Many give up, others flee. Emotional growth isn't linear, but the important thing is to keep going. I met Sophia, a 48-year-old woman who decided to separate after 2 decades of a seemingly stable marriage. Children, a house, careers. Everything appeared right. But inside she felt empty, as if she'd ceased to be herself. Years of pretending to be happy, pretending to love, pretending not to see her soul fading. Until one night, after putting her children to bed, she sat on the floor and wept for everything she'd silenced, denied and sacrificed to fit into a role that wasn't hers. In that solitude, she understood she could no longer live like that, betraying herself in the name of stability. The decision to face the pain of living without lies marked the beginning of her transformation. Individuation, as Jung called it, isn't perfection, but wholeness. Gathering all the parts of ourselves and accepting them. Many live a divided life, a social self, an intimate self, a professional self, a family self. The exhaustion of maintaining these divisions is immense. True freedom comes when we stop trying to be different depending on the environment, when we take responsibility for who we are, with all our flaws, scars, and uncomfortable truths. This takes courage, saying no, admitting mistakes, asking for help, acknowledging that we've been hurt, but that we are responsible for our own healing. Yes, we've been hurt, we've suffered injustices, we've lost loved ones, but we need to stop using this as an excuse not to grow. The past doesn't define the future, our present choices do. The inner journey is solitary. You can't delegate your healing. Therapy helps, friendships help, books help, but in the end it's you who needs to look inward, to feel, to decide, continue running or face the pain of rebuilding. Rebuilding isn't quick. It takes time, patience, and compassion. You aren't a project to be fixed, but a human being in constant evolution. All evolution involves discomfort, doubts, frustration, fatigue, but also clarity, self-connection, peace, relief, the discovery that, even after everything, we are still capable of loving, dreaming, and moving forward. Life prepares us for this, presenting situations, people, events that force us to look inward, crises, unexpected conversations, the weight of time. The choice is ours. Continue running, or take the first step toward transformation. If you're here, maybe life is already calling you. Maybe you're tired of pretending, of carrying burdens that aren't yours, of living in fear. Maybe you're ready to look at yourself honestly, to embrace all parts of you, including the ones that scare you, to understand that healing isn't erasing the past, but learning to live with it differently. You don't need to be saved. You need to be reminded of who you are, of your strength, of your light, that even in the shadows there is hope. I will walk with you every step of this journey. If you've made it this far, congratulations. Not because it was easy, but because you persevered. You resisted the urge to give up, the fatigue, the pain certain words brought. You chose to keep listening, feeling, seeking. That choice is an act of courage, of recognition, of self-love. Many who have reached this point have been through things no one has ever seen. They were hurt in silence, loved without receiving in return, carried the guilt of others, lost important people. And yet, they continued, breathing, living, trying, even when their hearts weighed so heavily that it seemed impossible to go on. The greatest strength isn't being invincible, but being human, allowing yourself to feel, recognizing that we all have scars. Transformation begins when we stop trying to erase our wounds and start to understand them. Every mark, pain, loss is part of our story, and that story can have good chapters even after everything. I received a message from a woman, Camilla, 36, who had lost her mother a few months earlier. She tried to escape the pain. She overworked, avoided talking about her, isolated herself. Until one night, listening to a song she and her mother loved, she cried. In that moment she understood she didn't need to get over her mother's death. She needed to learn to live with the longing, with the love that remained, with the memory. In accepting this, she said, it felt like the air became lighter, as if I finally had permission to feel. That is self-acceptance, not surrender. It's clarity. You can miss those who are gone, carry grievances, sorrows, scars, and still be valuable, worthy of love, of care. We deserve to treat ourselves with the same compassion we offer to others. You are not alone. No matter your pain, how many times you've fallen, how many times you've tried and failed, there are others here, watching, with scars, who have felt, lost, who are trying. Connection is vital. Finding connection in a world that often feels isolating is what this community is all about. It's a safe harbor, a place where vulnerability is strength, not weakness. We're all a work in progress here, a mix of the weary, the wounded, the bewildered, and the bravely hopeful. We share stories, not for perfection, but for authenticity, exchanging hard-won wisdom, offering a hand up when someone's feeling lost. Sometimes just hearing "I get it" is enough to lift the heaviest heart. So if you're up for it, drop a comment below, a snippet of your journey, a hard-earned lesson, a question that's been weighing on you. Sharing is entirely optional, but letting your voice be heard reminds us we're not alone in our struggles. And that's a powerful balm in itself. If you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button. Not for the content itself, but for the unspoken promise of connection, of finding a virtual hand to hold in the dark. This isn't just a channel, it's a lifeline. It's where pain becomes perspective, where scars transform into wisdom, where we realize being alive isn't about being whole, but about the ongoing journey of becoming. And that's enough. Think about it. You're here. Despite the falls, the losses, pain, the moments it shines brightest when we choose to live alongside it. You're breathing. Thanks for watching, for listening. That's a miracle in itself. Life doesn't end with